Hi, and welcome back to another edition of the Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show. I am Rob the Commish Smith, here as always with my partner in crime, Jay Cushman Corsel. How's it going today, Cushman?
Well, it's going pretty good, except for the Lions need a kicker. That's not good.
They do indeed. Remember, please tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. All right, Jay, so like every week, we're going to go around the NFL and bring our listeners up to date on all the latest news and mostly injuries. So what do you have for us this week?
Monty Ball. That's what I have for you this week, a big dose of Monty Ball. He won't need surgery, apparently. He did injure his groin this Sunday, but he will miss, quote, several weeks. So Monty Ball owners like myself in one of my leagues, took him in the first 3 rounds. You're hurting right now. I'm here for you. I feel it. He will not require surgery to repair the strained groin he suffered during a non-contact play, mind you, against the Cardinals. However, like I said, sidelined. Timeline looks like 2 to 3 weeks. So Ronnie Hillman's expected to lead the way. C.J. Anderson, the rookie, and Juwan Thompson backing him up. So, yeah, sorry about that, Monty Ball owners. That's a tough one. Rashad Jennings has sprained his MCL, and he was doing so fucking good, man. I was preaching this guy all off season that he was going to do great in New York, and he has been. But here was the issue that we didn't know about, that kind of stuff can happen with him. Jennings left the win after his first carry of the second half, and he did not return. Andre Williams will get the nod to carry a bulk of Jennings' work. Peyton Hillis possibly could chip in, but there probably won't be much there for anybody, so leave Peyton Hillis on the waiver wires where he belongs. Noshawn Moreno is back at practice and could play in Week 6. It's looking like Moreno could be back in time for Sunday's home game against Green Bay. His arm was wrapped, but he did participate in team drills, and that is a good sign this early in the week. I have some more sad news. Sad news. Calvin Johnson has aggravated his ankle injury when they were playing against the Bills. And he could miss a week, possibly 2. I actually just heard on local Michigan radio, might even be 3.
Hey.
Yeah, it's not. And and it's funny because I was just trying to trade for Calvin. I'd like to thank our former co-host, the Jimmer, for not agreeing to that trade. Thank you very much. But listen, this is bad news for Calvin Johnson owners. Look to find somebody. Look to offload him. I'd be honest with you, because I don't think this ankle injury is going to go away. They're saying it's not getting better. That's what they're saying. They're saying it's just not getting better. So they got to sit him down and hope that it gets better, or else he's just going to be gimpy all season. So there's a chance he could just be gimpy all season. So you might want to try to offload him. Play it off as he might only be out for 2 weeks, but get rid of him. Sell on Calvin Johnson, and that's coming from a Detroit Lions fan. It hurts me deeply to say it. Ryan Matthews could miss 2 more weeks here, people. He's probably out at least another week, and more likely 2. That knee sprain still bothering him, and as we all know, Donald Brown has been anything but impressive. He's been filling in for Matthews here. He suffered a concussion, and Brandon Oliver, well, wow. He looks good. And the Jets were supposed to be a pretty stout run defense, so, man, if you can grab Brandon Oliver, choo-choo, hop on that train. Fred Jackson says he should be, quote, fine after ankle injury. He had a right ankle sprain. Says he should be fine. We're not sure yet on the timeline of any return to 100% for Fred Jackson, so beware there. Jimmy Graham has injured his shoulder. Knocked him out of Sunday's 37-31 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're calling it a sprain and unsure of a timeline for his return. That is not good for Jimmy Graham owners. Ouch. And Reggie Bush. Oh, jeez, man. The Lions are fucked. Reggie Bush suffers an ankle injury. And leaving with just one healthy tailback, George Wynn.
George who?
Win, Rob. Win. And if we get a kicker, that's exactly what we'll be doing. I hope everybody out here in fantasy football and realizes the Lions would be 5-0 had they taken the time to sign a decent kicker this offseason. Both games they've lost this year were due to missed field goals. And with that, Rob, back to you, my friend.
Jay, I've got 3 words, which is actually one word that's hyphenated twice, and that is Kickalicious. They should have gone with Kickalicious, man.
Actually, I get that. Ha ha ha, funny. Listen, the reason they actually didn't go with Kickalicious, I actually heard this again on local radio, is they said he was too slow for him to be accurate. His approach to the ball was about 2.5 seconds too slow, and that he was consistently blocked in practice. So that is why Kickalicious is not a Detroit Lion.
Yeah, that does make sense. You just see a guy kick it 60 yards through a tire and score. You think that might be a good
problem
sign.
is when it takes him 20 seconds to line that kick up and run up and kick it.
Yeah. Check the wind and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the news and notes around the NFL. We're going to do what we always do, and that's go through the game-by-game breakdown of Week 5 and talk a little bit about the fantasy impact, both good and bad, based on the production or lack thereof of Week 5. So, Jay, you're going to get us started with last Thursday night's game. It's a couple teams that you are close and dear to your heart. The Minnesota Vikings against the Green Bay Packers.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Fuck. Well, actually, I'll tell you this. Out of the NFC North, neither of them are the Bears, so I don't hate them as much as I hate the Bears. But fuck Green Bay and Minnesota. They're not going to be much danger to us, I don't think, this year. Anyway, speaking of Minnesota not being a danger to anybody, Christian Ponder, 22 of 44 for 222 yards and 2 picks. That's an average of 5 yards a pass play, folks, and a completion rate of looks like 50%. Yeah, terrible, which is exactly what we knew would happen with Christian Ponder. Rushing, Matt Asiata, 15 carries, 72 yards. McKinnon, 7 carries for 24 yards, and Ponder did run the ball 3 times for 15 yards. And, oh, look at that, he ran a touchdown in, stealing thunder from his running backs. The guy is not only useless, but he hurts his running back's fantasy value. Imagine that. So, receiving for Minnesota here, Adam Thielen, 4 catches, 57 yards. Greg Jennings had a couple catches. Christian Ponder was throwing the ball. Not much went on here. Jarius Wright, 3 for 27. McKinnon caught 3 balls. Cordell Patterson continues to disappoint after a couple decent weeks. Man, he's just not. Of course, that could be because of the quarterback situation over there in Minnesota. May they continue with their many, many troubles. Moving on to Green Bay's side of the ball. Aaron Rodgers, 12 of 17, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Matt Flynn saw a little bit of action here. He just threw a pick. Eddie Lacy, 13 carries, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Damn straight.
I was gonna say, Commish, how's that make you feel there? It's got to warm you right down into the subconkles of the heart. Even with James Starks getting almost as many carries with 12 and 46 yards, Eddie Lacy still blew her up. Good job. Jordy Nelson, 1 catch for 66 yards and a touchdown. Slow day, Jordy. At least you got the touchdown to save your ass. Randall Cobb, 3 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. And Devontae Adams, 1 catch for 11 yards and a touchdown. Woo! Not a lot to say for the receivers there. We got some touchdowns, luckily, but yardage-wise and PPR-wise. Not great. So that's what I have for this route of the Vikings by the Packers. Rob, back to you.
Yeah, it was a good old-fashioned ass beating.
That it was.
It was indeed. We're going to go from one ass beating to another, and that would be my coveted Denver Broncos. You know, going into this game against the Cardinals, granted, we knew they had some quarterback issues, but they were undefeated going into this game, and they are no joke on defense, of course. So wasn't really sure what to think about it, but we handled things as we do here in the Mile High City to the tune, like I said, of 41
you guys smoked a joint?
to 20. Hey, it's illegal. All right, so in this one, Peyton Manning, man, just killed it. He threw multiple touchdowns to the tune of 4 touchdowns, which put him over 500, and he's close to record-hitting numbers in this one against Brett Favre. I think he just has a few more to surpass Brett Favre of all time. Passing touchdowns, probably get that done in his very next game because of all his weapons. Receiving weapons, Demaryius Thomas, thank you, kind sir, for showing up to the tune of 16 targets, caught half of those, which isn't great, but when you go for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 touchdown that was called back, you will take it. He got it done doing Demaryius Thomas type things. Emmanuel Sanders is doing what he's consistently doing, which is catching 7 to 9 balls for 100+ yards and not scoring. He did have a touchdown called back.
I would like to interrupt here for 1 second because yes. Okay. So, and I'm going to pull this video because I still have all of the video of all of our shows on my hard drive. We, if I'm not mistaken, made a couch shot bet, an over-under for receptions for Emmanuel Sanders this year. It was either that or it was if him or Demaryius would have more. But I know I took the over. Just saying.
Well, you better hope it's not touchdowns because I do have a bet on that. He hasn't scored a single touchdown, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. But he is clearly getting it done, even in non-PPR. Like I said, he's getting 100 yards a game. If he's playing Seattle or the Raiders, he still gets 100 yards. It doesn't matter. So he is doing quite well. Julius Thomas decided to show up this week after kind of a brutal week last week. Targeted 7 times, caught 6 of them for 2 touchdowns, so he definitely got it done for you. There was a Wes Welker sighting. He caught 7 of his 9 targets for 58 yards. No score on this one, but he's in a PPR league for you, maybe in your flex position. You could have done a lot worse there. Running the ball, of course, as we mentioned before, Monte Ball got hurt, tore his groin. I just hate even saying that, frankly. 6 carries for 7 yards before he went out. T.J. Anderson was a healthy scratch in this one, which was interesting. Ronnie Hillman got the bulk of the work here with 15 carries for 64 yards. That's 4.3 yards a carry. No score here, but he looked pretty decent. So he'll definitely be the handcuff moving forward until Ball gets back in an estimated 2 to 3 weeks. So Peyton, again, just to touch on this again, the guy, oh my lord, 31 for 47 for 479 yards and 4 scores. Yeah, he had 2 picks, but who cares when you have all those yards and touchdowns?
Killing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank Demaryius for a lot of that, but got to get him the ball, of which he did early, often, and accurately. On the other side of the ball, Stanton was still the guy this week. Still got a little Carson Palmer old man shoulder going on there. We'll see if that is still the case this coming week. Hopefully not, because, well, his wide receivers are hurting. Larry Fitzgerald, 3 catches for 57 yards. Michael Floyd, 1 catch for 7 yards. You are not going to win games when your 2 studs like that are getting 7 targets apiece and catching 2 or 3 of them. Andre Ellington, though, which is probably the lone bright spot in this story here, had 16 carries for 32 yards. Wasn't too great on the ground, only 2 yards a carry. However, he got it done receiving 4 catches for 112 yards and a score. So Stanton ended up going out of this one with a concussion, and the infamous Logan Thomas, actually, 3rd stringer, came in and threw that a little route there to Ellington, and Ellington took it to the house. So hopefully either Stanton or hopefully even more Carson Palmer gets back into this one for next week to get these guys' fantasy value back up to where they belong. But until then, probably ought to bench these weapons outside of Ellington till the foreseeable future.
Carson Palmer, get your old ass up off the bench and get on the field, please. Michael Floyd and I need you. All right, moving on. My heart is warmed when I get to talk about the Bears losing, and in the same sentence, Matt Forte going 17 carries for 61 yards and 12 catches for 105 and a touchdown. That's 34 points, folks. 34 points. Yes. And the Bears still lost. Thank you. Thank you. So, Jay Cutler, 28 of 36, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and as Jay Cutler is apt to do, 2 interceptions. Not a bad day all in all. Forte, like I said, absolutely killed it. Cutler ran the ball 3 times for 22 yards and also ran himself in a touchdown. Alshon Jeffrey, 6 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Marshall only had 3 for 44, no touchdowns. And Martellus Bennett finally failed his owners. 3 catches for 17 yards. Not great, Martellus. That was not a great day like you've been having, bud. Cutler also fumbled the ball. Forte did also, but they both had really good days all around, so those fumbles didn't really matter. Moving on to the victorious side of the ball, did I mention the Bears lost? Because, yeah, the Bears fucking lost. Yes, thank you. All right, Cam Newton, 19 of 35, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He also ran the ball 6 times for 9 yards. Not a normal Cam Newton rushing day. Darren Reeves, 11 carries for 35 yards. I'm not even going to try to pronounce Chris's last name. It's like Obonaya or something like that. Obanaya, there you go. There you go. He had a touchdown, and he carries 24 yards. My man, Greg Olsen, guy I called out as a top 5 tight end in the year, 6 catches, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Killed it. Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. Jericho Cotchery, 3 catches for 46 yards. Avant, 2 for 42. Calvin Benjamin, 3 for 38 on 11 targets, folks. 11 targets, and he only caught 3 balls. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a rookie. So really, that's about it for Carolina. Greg Olsen, everybody, and Matt Forte for the Bears. Rob?
You know, Jay, you almost called Cotchery by his porn name again.
Germungo Crotchery.
Indeed. All right, so we're going to move on to what I understand, Jay, is one of the most historic comebacks, maybe the most, not about historic, but as far as coming back from the biggest deficit of NFL history, yes, weird, was the Browns, for one. Secondly, was Brian Hoyer. Luckily for them, they were playing the Titans, which allows those sorts of things to happen. But the Browns ended up pulling away from the Titans here at the very end, 29-28, after being down like 20-some-odd points going into the third quarter or something. It was quite, I mean, these Browns are 2-2. They're in every game down to the last-minute field goal. Fortunately for them, they have a decent kicker, Jay. Man, this was too soon. So Brian Hoyer, 21 for 37 for 292 yards, 3 scores and an interception. The guy's shockingly getting it done, and he's keeping old money fingers where he belongs at this point, which is on the bench, learning to be an adult. Ben Tate came back. People were kind of speculating what his involvement would be on his first week back after the big free agent pickup there, getting hurt. and West and Crowell were doing well. He came in and got 22 carries for 123 yards. So he's clearly the guy to have in Cleveland. West actually outperformed Isaiah Crowell in this one. Had 7 carries for 31 yards. Crowell had 6 for 19, so he had more touches and more average per carry as well. Receiving perspective, Hawkins was targeted the most, as he typically is, but only had 3 catches for 27 yards. It was really Gabriel, that would be Taylor Gabriel. Never heard of him, frankly. Targeted 6 times, 4 catches for 95 yards. But Benjamin was the real guy here from a touchdown perspective. Travis Benjamin, the guy with all the dreadlocks there, which makes him probably one of a dozen. But 4 catches for 48 yards and 2 scores on this historic comeback. On the dismal Tennessee side of the ball, you had Jake Locker getting hurt, because that's what Jake Locker does. And you had the gunslinger Charlie Whitehurst. Pretty sure he's got a mullet, Jay. He came in on this one 13 for 21 for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. The guy came in relief. Would like to say he got it done, but they, of course, lost. They did score 28 points, however, so did pretty well. Kendall Wright was a no-show because that's what he does, kind of shows up and then doesn't show up. That was actually from a rushing perspective. Apologize. So he had 2 carries actually for 48 yards in this one. On the receiving side, he was targeted 8 times, just 6 catches for 47 yards. It was really Justin Hunter. Again, he's one of these guys who was people really high on, big waiver wire pickup, and then fell off the face of the earth. He did catch a one here, 3 catches for 99 yards. So he definitely, all these receivers here, Washington, Wright, all these guys, they're very, skanky plays, to be honest with you. You really don't want any part of these unless you're in deep leagues. And probably the biggest disappointment of the day was Bishop Sankey. This was supposed to be his coming out party. I started him in a flex position in a couple leagues. It had a really good matchup here against the Browns. And, man, he just had 8 carries for 27 yards, and that was it. Sean Green had 11 carries for 36 yards. They both played horribly. And the weird thing was, even in the beginning of this game, again, they were up big on Cleveland in the first 3 quarters by like 20-something points. You thought they'd just be running the ball, and they were not. So I'm not sure if that was just a coach thing or what the deal was there, but Sankey might need a couple more weeks to get back into this one. So that's it for the biggest comeback in NFL history, Jay.
All right, well, here you go, Browns fans. You got at least something on the good side of history, a comeback win, the biggest ever. You should be proud. As proud as the Lions fans are. We're not going to talk about that yet, though. God.
Jay, I'd just like to say somewhere out there, Tim Couch is proud.
Yes, Tim Couch has a tear in his eye. His conkles are all warm. So, anyway, moving on here to St. Louis, Philadelphia game. Philly held on to win this one despite the Rams' furious late game 3-touchdown unanswered comeback try. They still won 34-28. So we're going to start with the Rams side of the ball here. And Austin Davis, 29 of 49, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also added 3 rushes for 30 yards. Guy's still getting it done. I mean, you can't really complain about that too much, I'd say. Zach Stacy, 11 carries for 42 yards, no touchdowns. Benny Cunningham, 7 carries for 47 yards, and a touchdown. So, obviously, Stacy's still getting outplayed down there. The coaches need to maybe wake up a little bit and realize that he should not be the starter. Receiving side of the ball, my man, this week's acquisition in our Red Zone Warriors League for me, Mr. Brian Quick, targeted 9 times, had 5 catches for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jared Cook was the only person targeted more times. He was targeted 10 times, had 4 catches for 47 yards, no touchdowns. And I am loath to mention this, Rob. I really am. With 3 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown. On 6 targets, mind you. Go to hell, Kenny Britt. You go right to hell. Fuck you. You're dead to us. I don't care if you scored a fucking touchdown, 3 catches for 68 yards. Suck my dick, Kenny Britt. Asshole.
Yeah. Well, we just ratcheted that up.
Dude, really? No, now I'm even more mad. Now I'm even more angry. Fucking guy. Dude, I've had him on my team, what, 3? Out of the past 3 seasons, he's been on my season on my roster every fucking year. I'm always like, okay, this is the time. Kenny Britt's going to do it. He's going to be Kenny Britt. No, he's not. No.
You know that is the definition.
I dropped him and have started talking shit and I've written him off. He's starting to do shit. He caught a touchdown last week too, fucker.
Well, that is your behavior there, Jay, is the definition of insanity. So
I'm not saying. Look, man, I'm not saying. I'm not saying. All right, that is definitely on the table. All right. So anyway, moving on from fuck you, Kenny Britt. The Philadelphia side of the ball, Nick Foles, 24-37, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. How many picks is that now this year? I mean, last year he threw like none until like the last part of the season or something like that. Now he's, it seems like he's throwing at least one every 2 weeks. So, yeah, Nick Foles owners probably a little bit disappointed. Probably were thinking he's going to be a little bit better this season than he's shown out to be so far. Although Eagles still get the win. LaShawn McCoy, 24 carries, 81 yards. No touchdowns. Mr. Sproles, 7 carries for 51 yards. Foles added a couple for 13 yards. Jeremy Maclin caught almost half of his 11 targets at 5 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. The only other touchdown on the team was Riley Cooper, 3 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. Ertz, 3 catches for 39. Matthews, 4 for 35. McCoy, 4 for 5. Not a great day, really, for anybody on the Eagles, even though they still managed to win. I do believe their defense might have scored a few. So, yes, blocked punt. So, yeah, that's it for Philadelphia and St. Louis. I got Brian Quick, and you don't.
You're speaking to America or just me?
Just you.
All right, so we're going to move on to the Atlanta Falcons losing to the New York Giants, the resurgent New York Giants that are now 3-2 after looking like they would go 0-64, which is odd because there's only 16 games in the regular season. But that's how bad they were, folks, and they have turned it around. So we'll start with the loser side of the ball, and that would be Matt Ryan throwing 29 for 45 for 316 yards, 1 score, 1 interception. Not too bad a day for Mr. Ryan there. Rushing-wise, not so great. Devontae Freeman, 4 carries for 38 yards. Steven Jackson is still healthy, ladies and gentlemen. 13 carries, still getting less than 3 yards a carry, but that's the bruiser. That's what he does, and he did score on this one, which is what you pray for if you actually had the balls to start him. Man, this guy, Antone Smith, it's one of those folks, and this guy just seems to score every time he touches the ball. It is the most freakish phenomenon, but he's done it for like 5 straight weeks now. So if you're in a TD-only league and you're betting on a guy getting 3 touches and taking it to the house, Anton is your guy because he did it again this week on a catch, 3 catches, 83 yards a score, only 1 carry for 2 yards. So he's just needs to be a slot receiver, clearly. Atlanta. On the other side of the ball, Eli Manning, 19 for 30 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not quite as many yards as he has had in the past, but he still came through with 2 touchdowns for you.
You've got to be missing something here.
No picks. No picks.
Bullshit. No, we're talking about Eli Manning.
Yeah, it's like 2 or 3 weeks in a row here.
God.
I'm telling you, they got this Ben McAdoo offense down, man. They are figuring it out. Like we mentioned, sadly, because I for one have Rashad Jennings in 2 leagues, and he sprained his MCL in this one after 10 carries for 55 yards, doing well, got hurt. The rookie Andre Williams came in. We'll be filling in for him for probably a couple weeks at least. with Jennings out, Peyton Hillis backing him up. He ended up with 20 carries for 65 yards and did get a score here in this one. So Williams is definitely one of the biggest pickups of the week, probably the biggest pickup with Ronnie Hillman. We'll get into that later. But especially if you were a Jennings owner, hopefully you already had him. If he's still available, then you need to definitely pay what you have to pay to get him. Receiving side of the ball, it's really Ruben Randall is being targeted more and more often here. He had targeted 10 times, 4 catches for 33 yards, and a touchdown. Victor Cruz only had 3 catches on 6 targets for 22 yards. Larry Donnell, if you heard Jay, but it's all over America that he last week he plays fantasy football. He sat himself for, I believe, Vernon Davis that week that Larry scored 3 touchdowns. He actually thought to himself during the game, in his consciousness, he thought to himself, I can't believe I sat myself. And let's just hope that he sat himself this week because he had 0 catches on 0 attempts in this one. So
I have a theory here. Actually.
Yes.
So listen, Larry Donnell sat himself probably the whole time in the season, and the week that he actually played himself, this week, he took a crap. So, Larry, from the Fantasy Players of America, please remove yourself from your lineup. Because as long as you're in your lineup, this is what happens. Hubris, man. Hubris is not good.
I feel it just needs to fall on the sword on this one, take a hit for the collective team here.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's it for the Falcons and the Giants.
All right. Well, we're going to move on here to what I thought, honestly, would be a much more of a blowout type game, New Orleans and Tampa Bay. I thought New Orleans would probably run away with this one, but their defense keeps proving to be, well, shit. Allowing Tampa Bay to score 31 points and only lose by 6. On the Tampa Bay side of the ball, Mike Glennon, 19 of 32, 249 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Not a bad day. Doug Martin, 14 carries, 45 yards, no touchdowns. Bad news there. Bobby Rainey, though, 6 carries for 21 yards and a touchdown. He added 3 catches for 21 yards, and Doug Martin added 3 catches for 29 yards. Vincent Jackson, though, caught 8 of his 12 targets, 144 yards. Did not catch a touchdown, though. Man, that hurts. When you get that many yards, you think you're going to get a TD in there. Instead, the touchdowns went to Lewis Murphy, who had 3 catches for 35 yards, and Robert Herron, 1 catch for 9 yards and a touchdown. Moving on to the New Orleans side of the ball, Mr. Drew Brees, 35 of 57, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns. And wait, Drew Brees and Eli Manning switched places, 3 interceptions. Not great, Drew. Not great. Rushing side of the ball here, Kerry Robinson, 21 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. Relegating Mr. Pierre Thomas to just 4 carries for 35 yards, but he did score a touchdown. Also, leading receiver on the team, Mr. Pierre Thomas, 8 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Marquise Colston, 3 catches for 63 yards, not much going on there. Brandon Cooks, 9 catches for 56 yards. Pretty good day there. The only other touchdown of the day went to Tavares Cadet. He only had 3 catches. And Kerry Robinson only had 1 catch on 2 targets. So obviously Pierre Thomas is hopefully getting back to his former PPR badass self. So that is it for the Saints and Tampa Bay. Rob?
Yeah, the Saints just aren't what we thought they were, Jay. They even at home, they're struggling with the likes of horrible teams, frankly. The Bucks, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Very.
I mean, you know their defense stinks. I get it, but why does their offense stink? That doesn't make any
Well, I
sense.
mean, they put up 37 points. That's not terrible by any
No,
means.
it's not. But
You know,
last,
but Christ Almighty, dude, you give 3 interceptions up to Drew Brees, and Drew Brees gives up 3 picks to the Bucks. That's what kept him in the game. I guarantee it. You know.
yeah.
So
Well, and I will say too, Vincent Jackson and Mike Glennon. We saw this last year when Mike Glennon played 5, 6, 7 games, whatever he did at the end of last season. The guy's got eyes for Vincent Jackson. That should be some sort of James Bond title, but he does. So Vincent Jackson owners rejoice. Evans will come back at some point, but even so, Mike Glennon throws the ball to Vincent Jackson early and often, so he might be a guy to trade for moving forward. So speaking of moving forward, we're gonna go on to the Battle of the Lone Star State. That would be the Houston Texans losing. Gosh, again, Jay, we say this every week, but the Cowboys won another one. They are 4-1.
yeah, that's crazy talk right there. That's crazy talk.
Well, they're 4-1 until they go to Seattle next week and play Seattle in Seattle. But still, they'll be 4-2. It's still a pretty good start for those old Cowboys. All right, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 16 for 25, 154 yards and an interception. Jay, that is what's called not a good day. Not a good day.
Yeah.
Arian Foster, however, had a phenomenal day. He was actually healthy in this one and played the entire game for once. He had 23 carries for 157 yards and 2 scores. Sadly, he was on America's bench. I don't know. The guy is just, what a frustrating player. I mean, if you had the kahunas to play the guy, he's been banged up. He sat out last week, and everyone picked up out for blue and all this nonsense. But when he plays and he's in there for the whole game, he's going to produce, but you just don't know when that is. So I am telling everyone, sell, sell, sell. Right now, do it now. Sell him, sell his handcuff, get rid of the whole situation coming off this huge day and get something to help your team, because Foster will be sketchy at best moving forward. He'll probably miss 5 or 6 games the remainder of the season. Sell, sell, sell. Receiving, DeAndre Hopkins caught all 6 of his targets for 63 yards. Andre Johnson had 8 targets for 5 catches and 58 yards. And Jay, what would your guess, if you had to guess, 50-50 if Andre Johnson scored a touchdown?
Oh, I'm going to go with the under on that one.
Yeah, that'd be the under, because that's not what he does.
Nope.
It's like there's the grass allergy. It's a AstroTurf out. It's like there's a force field coming up.
I mean, that's just, he's just obviously he has had a curse put on him by somebody.
Yeah, clearly. It's quite something. That big, fast, and whatnot. Anyway, so he did not score yet again. One of the reasons that they only had 17 points in this one. Tony Romo, 28 for 41 for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Had a phenomenal play to Terrence Williams, scrambled around like Tony Romo does, like Ben Roethlisberger does, heaved one up 50 yards in the back of the end zone to Terrence Williams. It was a phenomenal play. It was actually against me in a league, so I wasn't too happy with it, but it was still a good play. Des Bryant targeted 14 times, 9 catches for 85 yards and a score.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I hear that, except when they go to Seattle next week. Jason Witten, 4 catches for 59 yards. That's pretty much all the relevant stuff from the Battle of the Lone Star State.
All right, well, moving on from the Lone Star State to my lonely heart. See, my heart is lonely because my team doesn't have a kicker, which is why they've lost 2 games this season. This week, I'm not even going to say the man's name. All I know is that if I ever see you in public, I will beat you to within an inch of your life. I mean, missed 3 field goals and we lost by 3 points. Fuck off. So, Kyle Orton, 30 of 43, 308 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. The pick did go for 6 points. What do you expect? Kyle Orton, I mean, this is Buffalo. They benched E.J. Manuel. Kyle Orton's in with his little weird mustache thingy. Fred Jackson, 10 carries, 49 yards. C.J. Spiller, 10 carries for 8 yards. Yes, that's right. Ndamukong Suh says C.J. Spiller, fuck you. 0.8 yards a carry. Ha! That's great. Sammy Watkins, 7 catches for 87 yards on 12 targets. Fred Jackson had 7 catches for 58 yards. Spiller, 3 catches for 25 yards. The only person to catch a touchdown for the Bills was a guy named Chris Gregg. 1 catch for 2 yards and a touchdown. So obviously, the Bills didn't have a great game in any aspect of the game except for kicking. Steve Christie, I believe, kicked 3 of 4. He had a long of 58. So if you had Steve Christie in, you had a good day and you're a happy Buffalo Bills person.
Jay, are you going to sit here and tell me with a straight face that you didn't start Chris Gregg in your daily leagues this week?
Oh, dude, I started him in all my daily leagues this week.
Yeah, as you should.
Just because he's got the name Gregg, it sounds like gag. You have no gag reflex. It just reminded me of you.
Wow. We're gonna go ahead and edit that out.
Oh no, that's staying right in here. That was beautiful. Wow. That was beautiful.
We are explicit on iTunes, ladies and gentlemen, for that very reason.
Yes, we are. Sometimes I say things before I think about them. Or maybe I think about them and say them anyway.
Clearly.
All right, look. Matt Stafford, 18 of 31, 221 yards, touchdown and a pick. Now, can we just say, can this finally be, this is Matthew Stafford's 6th year in the NFL, can we finally just say no more excuses this year? Calvin Johnson's hurt. Oh, well, you got Golden Tate, who caught 7 of his 9 targets for 134 yards and a touchdown. You've got Ross, you've got Pettigrew, you've got Ebron. Man, Stafford, you better step up. That's all I got to say. You better get a little bit better. This week, Reggie Bush went down, Joique Bell was out, and Theo Riddick is also out. So we had George Wynn running the ball, 11 carries, 48 yards, no touchdowns. Bush did get 6 carries for 13 yards before he went out. Like I said, on the receiving side of the ball, Bush also had 2 catches for 30 yards. Tate caught the lone touchdown of the day, as I mentioned earlier. Calvin Johnson, just 1 target for 1 catch for 7 yards. Ebron, 2 catches for 8 yards on 4 targets. We were really expecting a high-flying offense from the Lions. Not seeing it. Granted, Calvin Johnson is out. But you still have enough weapons out here that you should be looking a lot better than this. So, with that, I'm just disgusted. Back to you, Rob.
Yeah, not to add to the pain here, Jay, but just for value for the listeners here, given that Calvin is more than likely out, Reggie Bush is probably out, Joique may or may not play, they might be a good team to play a defense against, honestly. Would you agree? This week?
Yeah, probably, to be honest with you.
Well, luckily,
man,
for Detroit, you guys got the Vikings coming into town, so you have a chance to get a win here, even with your depleted offensive weapons.
That's what I'm hoping, and no ill will towards Minnesota fans out there. They're the least of my hatred. It's spread least to them in the NFC North, with the Bears being at the very top of that list, and the Packers. Well, you gotta hate the fucking Packers.
Yeah. All right, so before Jay gets any more depressed, we're going to go ahead and move on here to the Ravens-Colts game. The Colts ended up eking this one out 20-13. This was just kind of one of those defensive bruiser battles, just teams beating the crap out of each other. They're both 3-2 as a result of this win and loss, respectively, among these teams. All right, so Joe Flacco in this one, Mr. Anti-Elite, as we are now calling him, was 22 for 38, 235 yards and 1 interception, because that's a normal stat line for Joe Flacco, who once called himself the best quarterback in the NFL. He was paid as such for like 3 weeks, which was just ridiculous. But back to reality there, sir.
Dude, you can't spell elite without Flacco.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, the verdict is in. Justin Forsett is the rusher to have in Baltimore. This is a cluster F. Still like to stay away from this situation, but everyone was healthy going into this game. Bernard Pierce, the least amount of carries, 4 carries for 30 yards. Taliaferro, 5 carries for 18 yards. Justin Forsett, 6 carries for 42 yards. But Forsett also brings to the table some receiving skills. He was targeted 8 times, caught 7 of them for 55 yards. So he's definitely the running back to have here. Definitely in PPR and probably just either way, because at the end of the day, he's going to definitely be guaranteed more touches in all likelihood than either one of these other guys. So stick with Justin Forsett. Receiving-wise, again, Forsett was the most targeted pass catcher all around here. You did have Torrey Smith was also targeted 8 times, but he only caught 3 of them for 38 yards because Torrey Smith sucks. Not exactly sure why, he just does. Owen Daniels targeted 7 times, caught 5 of them for 70 yards. So he did pretty well for his owners there with Dennis Pitta out for the season, especially in PPR leagues. He did you a good service on this one. On the actually good side of the ball, Indianapolis Colts, Andrew Luck, 32 for 49 for 312 yards because on a bad day he throws for 300 plus. He had 2 touchdowns and uncharacteristically, just doesn't sound quite right there coming out of the old lips here, had 2 interceptions. So I don't know. I didn't see this game, to be honest, so he might have, I don't know if that was his fault or not, but he had 2 picks, 1 touchdown. Still did pretty well for you because he gets it done with his legs. He had 6 carries for 12 yards and a score. So Andrew Luck is one of the few quarterbacks out there. The other one that comes to mind is Russell Wilson. We'll talk about him later, but those are the really true quarterbacks that can really pass and run the ball consistently and effectively over anyone else in the NFL. So he's got that going for him. Ahmad Bradshaw almost had 2-to-1 carries over Trent Richardson, 15 for 68 at 4.5 yards a carry. Trent Richardson was 9 for 37 at 4.1. So Trent Richardson's actually doing a little better than he was. You're still not excited to start this guy, but if you need him as a flex position on a bye week issues or something, there's actually surprisingly worse options out there, but Bradshaw is still definitely a back to own in Indianapolis. Receiving-wise, both T.Y. Hilton and Reggie Wayne were targeted 12 times. T.Y. caught 9 for 90. Wayne caught 7 for 77. Neither one of them got into pay dirt this week, but they definitely did it for you in a PPR. And Dwayne Allen keeps getting it done. Tight end perspective here. Targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them for 59 yards and a score because he scores in damn near every game he plays in. Kobe Fleener, 1 for 30. Wah, wah, wah. So, you have some Dwayne Allen should be owned in all leagues, but for some reason he's not. And you've got Jimmy Graham or something this week going into a bye or have other issues. Dwayne Allen's the guy. Practically, Larry Donald might just pick him up and play him over himself this week. Who knows? And Jay, that's it for the Ravens Colts.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the sad 0-5 Jags getting beat by Pittsburgh to the tune of 17-9. On this one, Roethlisberger, 26 of 36, 273 yards and a touchdown, doing what Ben does just about every week. Le'Veon Bell, 15 carries for 82 yards. Blunt had 8 carries for 29 yards in this one. Receiving, my boy Antonio, 5 catches, 84 yards. Heath Miller, 3 catches for 46 yards. Bell added 5 carries for 36 yards. And Blunt, 3 for 17. The only touchdown in this one, though, went to a guy by the name of Michael Palmer. 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown. Just one of those things. Brown, obviously, is the man to have here still. I'm just going to say that because I have him. 12 targets. 12 targets. He only caught 5 of those, but 12 targets. I mean, he's obviously the guy that's just getting the ball thrown.
But
Yes,
Jay,
Rob.
this is Brown's floor. I mean, this is like his worst game of the season in all likelihood, and he caught 5 balls for 84 yards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 12 targets he's getting, and he gets that on a regular basis. So gotta love having him, man. Good stuff. Blake Bortles, the rookie, on the sad, pathetic Jacksonville side of the ball. 22 of 36, 191 yards, and like I said, rookies, 2 picks. Storm Johnson had 4 carries for 27 yards. You'd think with a name like Storm, he would have had more than 27 yards there. Actually, that's not too bad, 6.8 yards a carry. Blake Bortles rushed 4 times for 14 yards. Gerhardt, 4 for 9. And Denard Robinson, 3 for 6. Allen Robinson had 5 catches for 51 yards. Mike Brown, 2 for 26. Allen Hurns, 4 for 26. There was no touchdowns thrown in this game. There was no touchdowns scored in this game by Jacksonville whatsoever. Bortles also added 2 fumbles to his 2 interceptions. Not a great day for Jacksonville. They're 0-5. They suck. And there's not really anybody on that team that I would want on my fantasy team. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to you there, Rob.
All right, Jason, we're going to move on to the Chiefs getting beat here right at the end of the game on a fake punt, no less, by the 49ers to the tune of 17-22. Alex Smith in this one was 17 for 31 for 175 yards, 2 scores, 1 interception. Not pretty standard numbers there for Alex. Jamal Charles, 15 carries for 80 yards at a clip of 5.3. So he is back, ladies and gentlemen. His ankle thing is long gone. And another reason for that, or not reason, but justification, rationalization, whatever you want to say, is that Davis, this backup who did great when he was in there, Mr. Niall Davis, is getting nothing. He got 2 carries for 6 yards. So this is back to the Jamal Charles show as it should be. Let's see, passing perspective, it was a mixed bag here. Anthony Fasano, the tight end, while he's getting targeted the most on this receiving core, when you have the likes of Travis Kelce, no doubt. I have no idea, but he was targeted 7 times, caught 4 for 32. Travis Kelce was targeted 3 times, caught 2 of them for 15 yards, but he did get into the end zone to salvage his fantasy day before heading into the bye week. Jamal Charles targeted 4 times, caught only 1 for 4 yards. So Charles did not do what you expect him to do, but he did get 80 yards and a catch. So it's, again, kind of one of his floor-type numbers. You'll take that. When he's having an off day, she'll take it. So Kaepernick, 14 for 26 for 201 and a score. Anquan Bolden actually threw the ball in this one, was 0 for 1. Probably won't happen again this season, folks. Frank Gore, old man Frank Gore, still getting it done. 18 carries for 107 yards, almost 6 yards a carry. His long here was 14 yards, so still getting it done. Carlos Hyde, chipping away here at Frank Gore, still 10 carries for 43 yards in his own right. And Kaepernick, as Kaepernick does, 10 carries for 18 yards, which is actually not what he does, because 1.8 yards a carry is not what you typically see from Kaepernick. So the Chiefs' rush defense are kind of containing Kaepernick in this one, did a pretty good job, clearly. So receiving-wise, Anquan Bolden targeted the most here, 8 times, had caught 4 of those for 72 yards. So it did pretty good for you if you played him in the flex or wide receiver 3 position. And Crabtree had another stinker. I mean, Crabtree is just up and down. He had 4 targets, only caught 1 for 16 yards. So he's all over the place. I think the addition of Steve Johnson, I'm just not sure what the deal is here, but Crabtree is not getting enough targets to be a weekly start at all, Jay.
Yeah, that is why I dropped him 2 weeks ago in the Red Zone Warriors League. All right, moving on to the lowly, and I do mean lowly, New York Jets getting drubbed to the tune of 31-0 by the San Diego Chargers. Starting on the New York side of the ball, Geno Smith was benched after going 4 of 12 for 27 yards and a pick. He only had one rush for 3 yards. You know, we said this at the beginning of the season, that it looked very much like Geno Smith was in danger of losing his starting job to Michael Vick. Didn't know how long it would be or if it would happen, and it has. Michael Vick went 8 of 19 for 47 yards and ran 2 times for 14 yards. Chris Ivory, 9 carries for 44 yards, and Chris Johnson, 7 for 24. No touchdowns, nothing there, because obviously they didn't score any points. So not a good day for anybody owning the Jets. Eric Decker did not play in this game. So Jeremy Curley, 3 for 24. Jace Amaro, 3 for 19. And Jeff Cumberland, 2 for 12. I mean, just not the Jets all in all, which is fine because I really don't like the Jets anyway. On the other side of the ball, my quarterback, Phillip Rivers, 20 of 28, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, and unfortunately a pick. The story of the day, though, I think is probably Brandon Oliver. 19 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. Add 4 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown to that, and you have a monster day in the making. Donald Brown was his usual disappointing self, 9 carries for 26 yards and 1 catch for 4 yards. Sean Drogan, whatever. He had 10 carries for 19 yards. Malcolm Floyd, rather. Those two are confused quite often in fantasy. 3 catches for 72 yards. Antonio Gates is back, ladies and gentlemen. 4 catches, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that is all for the San Diego spanking of the New York Jets. Back to you there, Rob.
All right, so we're going to go to the Sunday night game, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the resurgent. They're back, baby. I'm not quite sure, but the Patriots, they won this one, 43-17. And considering it was against Cincinnati, that was quite the win for them. So who knows what to do with these Tom Brady-led Patriots. Anyway, you have Andy Dalton going 15 for 24 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's kind of putting up Andy Dalton-type numbers. Was pretty careful with the ball in this one, no interceptions. Gio Bernard, 13 carries for 62 yards. 4.8 yards a carry, so did well there. It's just they kind of got away from the run game because they started to get routed here towards the second half. So wasn't a huge day for Giovanni, but he was still getting it done when he had his opportunities. Hill was pretty much a no-show, 2 carries for 1 yard. Bernard also had 2 catches for 10 on 3 targets. So he's still great. Obviously, a starter every single week. This was just a weird game that got away from them. Pretty much towards the beginning of this game. So A.J. Green targeted 7 times, caught 5 of them for 81 and a score, so he always gets it done for you. Mohamed Sanu was targeted the most, actually, 9 targets for 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown himself. So he was a very good play for those who had the kahunas to play him. On the Patriots side of the ball, Tom Brady, again, no one in America started this guy. Because he's been so terrible, but he seemed to turn it around here. 23 for 35 for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns and no picks. That's kind of what you expect to see from Brady, and that's what he delivered here for you in this one. Stephen Ridley, rushing perspective, had 27 carries for 113 yards. I mean, how frustrating, Jay, to own any of these guys. Just you never know who to start, what the game plan is going to be, what matchup, what they're going to do. You have no idea. Maybe that's why they actually won this game, because Cincinnati clearly had no idea what they were going to do. Shane Vereen only had 9 carries, but he did have 90 yards on those 9 carries at 10 yards a carry, but no touchdowns, and had caught all 3 of his targets, but only for 18 yards. So Shane Vereen is definitely not living up to his draft status, at least thus far. We'll see if he can turn that around or not. Gronkowski had a Gronkowski-type day. This was his biggest one of the season. targeted 11 times, caught 6 of them for 100 yards and a score. Julian Edelman is the second week in a row. He's put up New York Jets types numbers, frankly. Only targeted 8 times, caught 5 of them for 35 yards and no score. So he was an every week starter. In a game where they scored this many points, you would expect Edelman to have 12 catches, and that was just not how the game plan went on this one, Jay.
Yeah, well, New England will do that to you at times. They are sneaky, sneaky. The guy in the hoodie. So moving on to the Monday night game, and to be honest with you, in my neighborhood league, I went into this game 28 points down with Russell Wilson left to play. I thought I had a chance. Didn't know that I had this much of a chance. Seattle pulled this one out 27-17. Russell Wilson, 18-24, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not only did he do that, he also led the team in rushing with 11 carries for 122 yards and a touchdown. Marshawn Lynch had 17 carries for 72 yards. But he was also the recipient of one of Russell Wilson's touchdown passes. He caught 5 catches for 45 yards and that touchdown. The other recipient of a touchdown catch was Jermaine Kearse on his only catch of the evening. Percy, 4 catches for 27 yards. He also had 2 carries for 7 yards. Marshawn, like I said, 5 for 45. Robert Turbin ran the ball 5 times for 19 yards. But as I said, the story of the Seattle side was my man, Russell Wilson. Thank you, Russell. You won for me. It was awesome. Kirk Cousins looked a little better this week than he did last week. 21-36, 283 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alfred Morris, 13 carries for 29 yards. Pretty sad, my friend. Pretty sad. The only thing I will pick apart on Kirk Cousins' game this week is why Deshaun Jackson was targeted 11 times and Pierre Garçon was only targeted 3. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Deshaun had 5 catches out of his 11 targets for 157 yards and a touchdown. Garçon, out of his 3 targets, caught 2 balls for 23 yards. Andre Roberts, 5 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown. Roy Halou, 5 for 59. Tight ends were pretty much non-existent in this game. So, again, Washington, it's going to be tough to play any of the wide receivers in Washington right now, apparently, because Cousins doesn't seem to have a favorite receiver. Is one guy's targeted heavily one week and one guy heavily the next. So be careful if you own a Washington Redskins wide receiver. And with that, I will send it back to you, Rob.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard this, Jay, but this was the most yards run by a quarterback in Monday Night Football history was what Russell Wilson did last night with 100-odd yards. And the other thing to note here, sadly for Percy Harvin owners, is that he had three touchdowns called back due to penalty. Literally,
that was
3.
It was ridiculous and it was obscene. And those referees, in all honesty, dude, some of those penalties, the way these games are being called is disgusting to me. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's a lot. There was a whole lot of Richard Sherman drama after the game, dogging Pierre Garçon and all this, which is I'm done with Richard Sherman. I don't think do I think he's a thug or something? Absolutely not. Now I just think he's an asshole. I've just made that transition.
Yeah, you do. Well, it's like they say in The Big Lebowski. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
Yeah, well, he's an asshole.
Exactly.
All right, so we're gonna move on. That's it for the games for this week. We're going to head right into the waiver wire pickups. And we're going to start, as always, Jay, with the quarterbacks. So what quarterbacks are you recommending this week?
Well, first of all, we're going to go with Mr. Teddy Bridgewater. He threw for 317 yards against the Falcons in his first career start. And, look, they're playing Detroit in Week 6, and they're not as defensively soft as Atlanta. They are vulnerable in their secondary right now, so this might not be a bad play. And after that, after Detroit, you got the Bills, the Bucks, and the Redskins. So, man, Teddy looking good coming up as long as he comes back from that little ankle issue that he had. Moving on from there, back to you.
Yeah, so Mike Glennon, we mentioned here in Tampa Bay, of course, their offense is bad. That's actually kind of a good thing for I should say their offense is bad. I'll take that back. But the point is they have a bad team all around, so they're typically having to come from behind, and that's good for fantasy football numbers in relation to quarterbacks. So Mike Glennon, he's thrown 551 yards and 4 touchdowns in his 2 starts. So he's clearly the better option with him. They should have gone with him out of the gate. He looked really good last year. Was shocked that they started Josh McCown and brought him in. But you could do much worse on the waiver wire than Mike Glennon if you're in the need for one.
Absolutely. Another guy you could do much worse than is Austin Davis in St. Louis. He's thrown for 702 yards and 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games. And, the fact that he put these numbers up against, shitty defenses, Philly and Dallas, little asterisk goes there. But other than that, I mean, he does have a tough schedule coming up, 49ers, Seahawks, Chiefs. So be careful with him, but he's looked good thus far, and hopefully he keeps throwing the ball to Brian Quick. Rob?
Yeah, I bet. Just hopefully not in week 10 or whatever we play each other again.
Oh, hell yeah. 10 catches for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns for Quick that week.
Yeah, maybe that's our bye week. I'm not sure. Okay, so we're going to move on to the running backs. We're going to start, as we mentioned earlier, the Chargers running back Brandon Oliver. He is definitely one of the big waiver wire running back pickups for this week. He rushed for 19 times for 114 yards and a score. He also caught 4 passes for 68 yards and a touchdown. I tell you, with all their injuries here, Matthews is out for another couple, 2-3 weeks. Obviously, Woodhead is out for the season. This guy, I think he's going to have a role, Jay, even when Matthews comes back, because they need that Woodhead type player in the games. This is a guy who can definitely get you by for the next couple weeks, and then probably carry some fantasy value moving forward. Talking about moving forward, they have the Raiders coming up. It's clearly a great matchup, followed by the Chiefs and Broncos. So definitely for a week or two, he's a great pickup for anyone needing a running back.
Absolutely. Another guy that could be good for at least a couple weeks here is Giants rookie running back Andre Williams. 20 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown, caught 2 passes for 18 yards this week. Jennings probably going to miss a couple of weeks, so he'll be very usable, and he's got the Eagles and the Cowboys coming up before his bye week, so definitely a good play here. Back to you.
Yeah, so again, we mentioned Monte Ball went out with a growing injury. Ronnie Hillman seems to be the main backup here. It's definitely going to be a running back by committee with C.J. Anderson in the mix as well, although he was a healthy scratch last week, so clearly the coaching staff preferred Hillman to back up Ball in the previous game, so that's a good sign moving forward. But again, Monte Ball is going to be out probably 2 to 3 weeks. Now they do have the Jets and 49ers and then Chargers coming up. So, the Jets, of course, were run on like crazy last week, but that was kind of an anomaly. They're a pretty stout rush defense. So I wouldn't be starting him with, hopeful optimism, but if you need a guy to fill a role, he's definitely going to get a lot of touches, and he's obviously on a great offense.
Yeah, another guy here, Mr. Bobby Rainey. He may have been picked up and he may have been dropped because Martin's been back. But Martin has not impressed this year, and he's turned in another mediocre performance in the overtime loss to the Saints in Week 5. 14 to 45, 3 passes for 29. Rainey carried 6 times for 21 yards and a touchdown and caught 3 passes for 21. So, really, if it wasn't for his fumbling problems, he might, they might have a 50-50 timeshare here by now. And it could become even more favorable if Martin continues to be unimpressive. They got the Ravens, their bye week, and the Vikings coming up. So, not a terrible schedule. And with that, we're going to move on to the wide receivers. And Rob, we'll let you have Mr. Brian Quick, I believe.
Yeah, well, hopefully this guy, well, I wouldn't say hopefully if you're trying to get him, he's still on your waiver wire, but in all reality, he's owned probably in 80-something% of leagues and probably be 100% after this week is up. But if he happens to be out there, obviously he's a guy you need to go get and probably spend 15-20% of your budget on him if you're in a budget type waiver wire situation. You know, he's making a push here to become a top 25 wide receiver if he even puts up, you know, what he's been doing, even a percentage of that. So far, he came from 5 catches for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns just this past week. You know, given it was the Eagles, but still, he did that. It's giving him 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. So the guy's being targeted by Austin Davis early and often. He's just getting it done week after week. Even in non-PPR, he's a killer, but in PPR, the amount of catches and targets he's getting is through the roof. So definitely grab him. They do have the 49ers, but they aren't what they used to be, followed by the Seahawks and the Chiefs. So the schedule's not great, but when he's getting force-fed the ball like he is, you need to pick him up.
Absolutely, I did, and he helped win me a game this week with 24 points. Titans wide receiver Justin Hunter is up next. Look, he had a 75-yard touchdown catch in Week 5, which was most of the damage he did in his 3 catches for 99-yard day. But he does listen. The guy's got Jaguars, Redskins, Texans rather coming up next 3 games. Good possibility that he could show up a little bit in each of those games, possibly catching another nice long touchdown for you. So, Justin Hunter. Rob?
Yeah, playing the Jaguars, I think Hunter might be a really good guy on a daily league. Kind of when you're out of money and you're looking for that last flex position, you have like $1,500 left. Justin Hunter just might be your guy. Another guy that's breaking out is Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. This was, if you remember, which may or may not because the guy's been hurt and hasn't played, but he was the 12th overall pick in this year's NFL draft, one of the top wide receivers taken. And I tell you, he looked good right out of the gate. He caught 4 of his 5 targets in this Ben McAdoo offense with Eli Manning, everything flowing. He caught those 4 catches for 44 yards and a score. So I tell you, this is another reason why the Giants' offense is just looking better. Eli Manning's looking better. Is one more weapon to add. And they have terrific matchups coming up. It's one of the reasons I picked him up in a league because they've got the Eagles and the Cowboys following up the next couple weeks before their bye. So if you need a wide receiver in a deep league, or clearly if you need a quarterback, the Giants are a team to look at.
Absolutely. So moving on from wide receivers to tight ends, this guy should be owned already in most leagues. If he's not, go get him. Owen Daniels, filling in for injured Dennis Pitta. Look, Daniels had 5 catches against the Colts on Sunday, season high 70 yards. Pitta's out for the season. Owen Daniels is a good backup. He's got the Bucks, the Falcons, and the Bengals coming up, so not terrible matchup, especially that Falcons matchup. Their defense seems to be pretty porous. So tight end Owen Daniels, that's who you need. Rob?
Yeah, another tight end. I wasn't really going to mention this guy, but if you're in deeper leagues or having some injuries or bye weeks like Jimmy Graham this week, Tim Wright's a guy. He's on the Patriots, and obviously they have Gronkowski. But Week 5, he had came up pretty big for the Patriots in their big win over the Bengals, catching 5 passes for 85 yards and a touchdown. They're starting to do a 2 tight end split on this offense. It's working well for them. It's like similar to what they were doing with Aaron Hernandez before he was out killing people. So Tim Wright's a guy, again, it's with Gronkowski there, it'd be a sketchy play, but if you're in a deep league and you're hurting, you're dying out there, Tim Wright, there's some worse options out there. So.
Yeah, and here's one of those worse options. I wouldn't touch this guy with a 10-foot pole, although the offense is starting to look hot. But they got, again, bad matchups coming up. I'll get to it. Jared Cook, tight end for the Rams. Cook, he hasn't scored a touchdown. He's had at least 4 catches in each of his games, and he's getting about 55 yards a game. But they got the 49ers, Seahawks, and Chiefs coming up. So, honestly, I would probably stay far away from Jared Cook unless you are really, really fucking desperate. So that's it for our waiver wire report for this week. So we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to do a little who do I start action this week. What we did is I went on fantasypros.com. I took a bunch of the closer, 50-50 split from the pros type questions here for who do I start. And first up, we've got Pierre Garçon at Arizona. or Victor Cruz at Philly. Now, look, normally this wouldn't even be a question, but since Garcon has only scored more than 5 points in 2 of his 5 starts, I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to Cruz here. Eli, seems to be red hot right now, whereas Cousins, honestly, at times looks like a lost little boy out there. So based on that alone, I would start Cruz over Garcon this week. Actually, I will be doing that in one of my leagues. I am going to caution you, though. Cruz has had a couple of no-show type games himself, but he's been pretty solid in his other 3 performances. So that's what I got for Victor Cruz or Pierre Garcon. I would definitely go with Victor Cruz this week. Rob?
All right, we're going to keep it on the Giants theme going forward here. We're going to talk about Ruben Randall at Philly or Brian Quick at home versus the 49ers. Like I mentioned before, Jay, the 49ers D clearly isn't what it used to be, and it's just hard to sit Brian Quick here. He's just so hot right now. I think that's what we're going to give the nod to. In his first 5 weeks of the season, Quick has yet to go below 14 points per game. So again, you're going to expect some similar performance here against the Niners. But Ruben Randall has been somewhat up and down. He had 2 games in single digits and only averaging about 10.8 points per game. So and that's versus Quick's 17.8. So I think it's better safe than sorry here, and we're going to give the nod to Brian Quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would. And moving on, last but not least, Mr. Golden Tate at the Vikings or Kendall Wright at home versus the Jags. Now, listen, while the Jags D is a matchup you'd probably love to exploit, I'm going to go ahead and give my boy Tate some love here. He's put up better numbers than any Lions number 2 receiver in recent history. Calvin Johnson's going to be out. In the 5 games this season, he has not dropped into single-digit scores once. And he's actually gotten better since Calvin got banged up. Kendall Wright, he's had a couple good games. One of them came this last week against Cleveland. But the 3 games before Sundays were all under 10 points. So definitely edge Golden Tate. Rob?
Yeah, I would agree with that. My only concern is we haven't seen Tate play in a game that Calvin was out of from the get-go. He was always there as a decoy, so that's my only concern there. But again, Minnesota's defense isn't all that great. Their secondary is not that great. He's going to get targeted like crazy because, well, who else are they going to throw it to? So I think him and Ebron might have a very good day, and they're going to need to with their depleted offensive weapons. All right, so that's it for the questions there. On our next show, we'll be discussing Week 7 waiver wire grabs, along with helping you decide who to start and who to sit. In the meantime, you can go to redzonewarriors.com where you can watch all of our previous episodes, see our rankings, and subscribe to and rate our show via iTunes. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. So for the Cushman, I am Rob the Commish Smith, and we will catch you next time.